welcome to the Bearded Bro Show podcast. I am one of your hosts, Dustin, and forever joined by
Travis always, and today we have a very special guest, and his name is Anthony A Perez. How's it going, man?
Good, man. Thank you so much for having me on, guys. Definitely nice to be back on the podcast. Well, I'm not even back on the podcast. I was
yeah, that's right. You've been here before. I just introduced him as a newbie.
Well, I mean, I guess it's kind of new, right? Because I was on your podcast for your channel when you did Trav Talks, and so now this is a separate thing. So I technically haven't been on this one, but either way, thank you. I definitely genuinely appreciate the opportunity.
Well, and we definitely we wanted to have Anthony on for a particular. Well, for one, let me just throw this out there. He's a YouTuber like us, and like his little motto on his channel is movies, TV, and Star Wars. So Star Wars is definitely like a big, pretty much like, a lot of us are. It's like a big part of our lives. And Anthony is literally the guy. Like he can second this, because I literally hit him up all the time about Star Wars information. I'm just like, you're my Star Wars Google, man. Like I ask questions, and he just, like, if he's available to answer it quickly, like 5 more minutes, and he's got like, just, this is it. This is what happens. Like, I'm just like he knows more than like you would think, I guess. I don't know how to really crazy. Say that, but
it's so funny because Anthony and I are friends on Facebook. I see the Star Wars announcements before I see them from Star Wars. Like, I see, like, Anthony is on it. It's like insane. I'm just like, damn, all this stuff's coming out. Like, thanks, Anthony. Like,
yeah, I definitely I try to be on top of all of it, and it's almost an issue for me, genuinely, because like the other night when all of the Disney investor announcements came out, or now it's been like a little over a week or so. As soon as the announcement started to come out, I just had to stop what I was doing. Like, I had to sit down, and I was just refreshing my phone over and over, going over again, keeping up with everything that was being dropped, because I just feel this internal, almost just like this need, like this addiction to keep up with the movie news as much as physically possible. So whenever there's something big happening, I want to be in the know as soon as I can. Just to kind of look into it and get my excitement up and be able to kind of be part of the conversation. I know sometimes my girlfriend's just like, yeah, you're absolutely and utterly addicted. Like, you have a problem. but that she still loves me, I guess.
Well, that's always good.
But yeah, Star Wars, I think all three of us in some shape or form, it means something to us all. And, like, basically, if none of you know what any of this was, they did this big announcement, which is just like kind of like how the MCU did the same thing, where it just like gives you this slate of just like the Marvel movies for like the next few years, like, a few years ago when they did all that and like announcing Endgame and Infinity War and all that. It's like Disney Plus is like killing it right now with just, I mean, now, are any of these shows going to come to fruition? We don't know. It's like, I'm sure that with the announcement, it's got to be pretty much like in the can and ready to go if there's being announced, but you never know what happens. But with you guys though, with all these announcements of all these shows, what are the ones that like stand out to you as like most excited about, just in general?
I mean, I guess I would have to say all of the Star Wars ones for me, naturally. Like, I mean, in Marvel, I always say kind of like Star Wars is my favorite thing of all time. It just goes beyond just being like favorite movies. And Marvel has typically always been like right behind them. So just to know that the two of those are kind of like at the front of like just this brunt of just amazing content that's coming out is amazing in and of itself. So I'm excited for all of that. But definitely the Star Wars stuff for sure. Look, I think there's just so much about it that's just, as a diehard Star Wars fan, is exciting. Being able to touch into the familiar with the Obi-Wan Kenobi show and, things like the Bad Batch or, now the upcoming the Book of Boba Fett and all this cool stuff that's really exciting, while also being able to get new stuff like the Acolyte, which is going to take place during the High Republic era, which is a new era that's launching in publishing in January. So I'm incredibly excited to be able to get a new era on screen. That's something that I think is definitely exciting. But yeah, I mean, all of the announcements that they dropped, I don't think there's a single announcement that like I'm necessarily disappointed or not excited for. Like everything to some degree, whether it's like, oh, I'll check that out at some point or I need to see it immediately, I'm pretty excited for it all.
Yeah, and I think you were telling me about the other day, like on Xbox or something, like the High Republic stuff. Was that the same thing you were talking about, where it's like way before, like any of the movie, like way before the prequels, or am I wrong?
Yeah, so it's not going to be like way before, like as in like the old Republic era, which I think, a lot of Star Wars fans, even if you're not overly familiar with it or have at least heard of and know of because of, Knights of the Old Republic and all of that jazz. The High Republic takes place, I believe, about 200 to 300 years prior to the events of the Phantom Menace, and kind of show the Jedi in like a different stage of time. Everything from the clothing that they wear, to the lightsabers that they have, the hilts that they have, and kind of their mentality. It's all kind of different. The way they kind of explained a lot of the Jedi at this time is almost kind of like explorers, almost kind of like adventurers, like these.
Yeah, instead of
They're keepers
protectors.
of the. Yeah, like they're
Yeah.
keepers of the peace. They still do the good guy thing, but at this time, there's no empire. There's no trade federation. The world is kind of at a place of peace. So I kind of like that. That's kind of the way that they've kind of painted the picture. Is like these Jedi aren't battle hardened, ready to fight Jedi. Like they can, but they're kind of more of explorers. And in this whole High Republic era. They've announced that there's going to be these new villains called the Nile, which look like they're going to be like kind of like these tattooed up, kind of like pirates in a way, and they're going to be like the big villains that are going to come into the galaxy and stir things up for the Jedi. So I just like everything that's kind of different about it, just to kind of see Jedi, a few hundred years prior that are wearing different clothing and seem to be a little bit more on like an almost like an Uncharted, like Indiana Jones kind of adventure kind of way, like in their story. I think that's pretty exciting. So I'm looking forward to that era for sure.
I think I think there's something special about that, considering like I'm one of the people that's also ready for something like this, where it still might somehow they're let's just face it, they're probably still gonna tie it into Skywalker somehow, but but that's the one thing, like I love what we're getting with what we've had so far with the Skywalker saga, but it's like I'm just been kind of ready and itching for something Star Wars that just like has nothing to do with any of that, just to like, because it's a whole universe, it's about space, and like there could be a billion other things happening elsewhere, so it's just like it's really interesting, and I'm excited to see that. Absolutely. Kind of jumping over, like the Bad Batch, which actually, let me just ask Dustin what he thinks about the other one before I jump onto the other one.
How do I feel about what? the Bad
Welcome
Batch?
to the freaking show, guys.
Well, like, there's so much like I'm thinking of right now that you straight just put me on the spot.
Anthony just blew Dustin's mind right there. Just like, wait a second.
I'm
I
like
didn't know
processing
this.
everything he said and thinking about like how cool that is.
I
and
like literally looked at my phone like, did we lose him? Like, what?
no, I'm dumbfounded in the best way.
Well, I guess that answers that. Ahsoka series. I mean, so obviously, like, I don't know. Dustin, did you get to that episode, or is that? Yeah, that's.
He should have.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was about to say, like, surely that's. Yeah, I remember Anthony telling me about the actress that plays her in live action, and how like you, like, give me your thoughts that you gave me like not that long ago about that, if you want to, just of the whole, like, what you think of Rosario Dawson playing her, because I know that she was like literally a fan thing. Like, it was like Lucasfilm have literally just admitted, like, the fans just rising up to be like, she should play Ahsoka in live action if you ever do a live action Ahsoka, and then like it literally happened, which I'm also hoping Sebastian Stan for Luke in a Luke crossing over into another show or something would be cool. But yeah, recap on those thoughts.
So yeah, I would say that for me, Ahsoka is this character that just to give some more context to where my thoughts are coming from. Ahsoka is this character that I remember going to see the Star Wars Clone Wars movie that was essentially a promo for the TV show, where Ahsoka was first introduced, and I remember going to that screening and. I enjoyed the movie for what it was at the time. Now, with after all of this, I would say it's like the worst theatrically released Star Wars film. But I remember just enjoying it for what it was, and I love the Clone Wars series. And Ahsoka starts off as this, for me, kind of just annoying character who comes in thinking she kind of knows more. She's
Yeah,
naive.
she comes across that at first with the show too. At
Yeah,
first.
for sure. And I think that that's kind of the beauty of her character is that as an audience member, I would say that so many Star Wars fans I've spoken to with her character over the course of the Clone Wars, kind of had this annoyed kind of vibe with her. Like, who is this kid who's calling, she's calling Anakin Sky Guy, she's calling R2, R2E, and she's kind of doing these strange things that just don't feel so Star Wars. But over the course of the show, she really does become this incredible character who's developed so much. And I don't want to say too much because I know, Trav, you're in the middle of watching the Clone Wars for the first time, and then you haven't seen Star Wars Rebels. But Star Wars Clone Wars and Rebels just do such a great job of fleshing her character out to where she goes from being this kind of naive character to seeing her journey and being able to see her thinking, to see her in these moments where she's looking around and observing the situation before she speaks, whereas before that's not who she was. And I think that the show, even though it's animated and some people kind of just write it off as a cartoon, does such a great job of giving her character so much nuance and making her feel and look like so tangible as time goes on. You really do feel her maturing over the course of the show, and by the time you get to the finale of Star Wars Rebels, she's just become this epic, good force using character in the franchise, this hero to so many that has so much heart. And so I say all this to say that I have to praise, beyond the writing and the direction of those episodes, a lot of that just goes down to the performance given by Ashley Eckstein, who did the voice of Ahsoka Tano. She even did the voice of Ahsoka Tano for the brief moment at the end of The Rise of Skywalker when Rey is hearing all the different voices of the Jedi. Ahsoka is one of them.
That's so cool.
And so it's like a nice little Easter egg and things like that for fans, but it's always been Ashley Eckstein. And so when I heard, and I've met Ashley Eckstein multiple times, I should add, and she's super nice. She's really nice, but she's also a really short woman. She's like significantly short. And I think that kind of her height and maybe like the fact that she's only like she hasn't acted in an abundance of things in live action kind of hindered her from being the number one choice for live action, which makes sense to me, right? Like, I want to make it clear, too, that Rosario Dawson, to me, is a fantastic actress, and anytime I've seen her in anything, I really have thoroughly enjoyed her performance, and I really enjoyed what she did with Ahsoka. But it was just something that was strange to me when I heard it was announced. I didn't really want it. I was kind of against it, which isn't really common for me with Star Wars. I'm typically very open. And I was kind of worried that they were just going to go in a direction that I wasn't necessarily thrilled about, And, after having seen the episode, I really did enjoy it. And I think what Rosario Dawson really nailed for me was the cadence of her voice, the way that she would say the lines, the pauses in between certain words, the elongation of certain words. She really studied the way that Ahsoka speaks. So when you watch her talk and when you watch her speak and say these sentences and say these lines of dialogue, she is saying them exactly how Ashley Eckstein would say them. But there is this disconnect still there for me. And as a continuity nerd, it is kind of weird to think now, okay, well, in Mandalorian she sounds like this, but in The Rise of Skywalker she sounds like Ashley Eckstein, the original voice actress. So I don't know. It's kind of like a conflicting situation for me where I wish that Ashley Eckstein was playing her in live action, but we got what we got, and I think Rosario Dawson did do a good job.
Yeah, man. That episode was just like, that was, and it was directed by Dave Filoni. So obviously, like, they would get it right, especially with him around, because I've always kind of, like, at least so far, I just kind of have looked as Ahsoka as that's his character in a way. I don't know if I don't know who created Ahsoka off the top of my head, or anything like that, but anything with Ahsoka, it's like always got his name attached, which, I mean, he's attached to a lot of Star Wars now, which is crazy, and like I'm learning all about that with watching Clone Wars and how many times he's in the credits. It's crazy.
Well, he is the showrunner of the Clone Wars and Rebels. Like he's essentially George Lucas's George Lucas 2.0. Like the Clone Wars was the last thing that George Lucas worked on, and Dave Filoni was kind of brought in to be Like he kind of became the prodigal son essentially. So like I don't know if you guys have seen, but on Disney Plus, and I'm sorry to cut you off. I just to give you a little context on Dave
Very
Filoni.
good.
But if you watch on Disney Plus, there is a thing called the gallery, like the making of the Mandalorian.
Yeah,
and they do.
so
It was
good.
like a yeah, it was super super good. And in those scenes, you know, some of those not scenes, but some of those moments, those round tables where they're talking with Dave Filoni, it's just clear he's the most well versed and most knowledgeable on the universe of Star Wars, and that just all goes down to the years and time he spent with George Lucas, really just training him into understanding what the ins and outs of Star Wars is, whether it's what the Force is, what the Force means, what it means to be a Jedi, the flaws of the Jedi, you know, the imperfections of what they are, but also kind of the message of hope that they ring out, and just an understanding of the universe overall. I think that Dave Filoni is essentially the current George Lucas as far as being a part of all these projects, almost as a consultant to make sure that it makes sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and like I was noticing with that episode because, like I said, I haven't gotten to Ahsoka like as a like fully trained Jedi or adult, whatever you want to call it, in the shows yet, and so I'm kind of like, all right, I got to kind of experience like, dang, like how that girl moves when she's killing things. Like it was literally like she was using her lightsabers, whatever, then like turning them off to go into like stealth and all that. I thought that was just like so. I can't wait to just see a whole show that's like just her doing that. I know it won't be in action the whole time, but there was just something about that. And I didn't know how the white lightsabers were gonna look, but they're just gorgeous in live action. That might be one of my favorite. Besides Luke's just green, that Ahsoka's probably is like second place of just like I love the dual idea and just the way it comes apart. I'm like, yeah, I mean, and I had seen that like in clips of the animated stuff with those lightsabers, but it's almost, I don't know, like it's just something about it in live action too. It just has so much power, and I feel like she does. And I don't know, like with the way that she was and everything, was that like, do you feel like that was in continuity to how she is in the shows, like whenever she grows up?
Yeah, I would say that it's a lot more in line with the Ahsoka that we know near the end of
Nice.
Star Wars Rebels. You know what I mean? She's grown up a lot by then. By the time you get to the end of the Clone Wars, she's a significantly different character from the beginning of the show. Like when you really think about the Clone Wars, it almost feels like the show is about Ahsoka. You know what I mean? Because we as an
Yeah.
audience, we already know the story of Anakin and Obi-Wan and all that stuff. This just helps fill in the gap, but she really is kind of the main hero that you really like. If you were to say like who is really the focal point character by the end of the Clone Wars that really gets the most development, and it has their own real character journey outside of all the fleshing out of the characters that we know from the movies, it's without a doubt Ahsoka. So by the time you get through the Rebels as well, and even Ahsoka's novel, which is a really good book, she's become this much more at peace kind of character. You know what I mean? She's so much more calm and cool and collected, which is kind of how you see her in that episode. And I am looking forward to seeing what they do with the Ahsoka show. It is what it is, right? There was there is a part of me that still feels weird about it, but I'm just trusting in the people at Lucasfilm because they haven't released anything yet in this current line of Star Wars stuff that has been bad to me. Some have been better than others. Some have, there's things that make me feel weird about certain ones that I still have to kind of sit with. But there hasn't been anything that's been bad to me. So I've been having fun with it, and I just have to kind of put my trust in these creators I've already put my trust into,
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm looking forward to it, for sure. And they had been rumors that there was going to be some sort of sequel series to Rebels, because Rebels kind of plays as its own thing, but also a sequel series to the Clone Wars, where there are characters that only ever appeared in the Clone Wars that will appear in Rebels. So you need to have seen Clone Wars first, and then kind of Mandalorian is kind of doing a similar thing, you know what I mean, with Bo-Katan and Ahsoka appearing, and there was rumors of a sequel series to Rebels that was going to play off of the finale of Rebels. And in Ahsoka's episode, the Jedi, at the end when she's fighting that lady with the Beskar staff, she puts the saber to her throat and she says, where is Grand Admiral Thrawn, which is a huge character from the old canon that was resurrected and now has his own new books in the current canon and was resurrected into Star Wars Rebels. And so he's a huge part of that storyline. And what's it called? Her saying that to that lady obviously was kind of like a tease for what her show would be,
Yeah.
which is based on the finale of the events of Star Wars Rebels. So, I'm definitely excited for that.
I really like what they're building here. Now, Mandalorian, was kind of a start, but, they're kind of like, it's like shows are kind of jumping off of this just obviously, but you know what I mean? But it's like, but they have to start somewhere with building up to stuff, and I feel like Mandalorian did a good job of, like, staying to its own story, but also, like, it did have some crossover stuff that is very obvious, like, alright, Boba Fett, okay, Ahsoka, it's like, they played their part in the show, and I feel like it wasn't too, like, jarring or just, like, a barely written moment just to have their new show or whatever. I feel like that's been great. It's like, basically what they're doing now is, in a way, what Marvel did. It's like, I just feel like this future of, like, Star Wars stuff that, not necessarily like, oh, all these characters will eventually team up. Like, that's not, no, but it's definitely got, there's a vibe to this that I'm really enjoying so far. Like, Mandalorian was just like, there's episodes that I like more than others, but I'm actually currently rewatching the whole thing. I just was like, okay, season 1, let's go. And I want to see it without having to wait, like, a week at a time. Just see the whole show, as many episodes as I could fit into one sitting, and, like, just do it like that. Really good stuff. Dustin, do you have any thoughts about the Ahsoka series?
I mean, I'm definitely excited for it. Really, I'm excited for all of it, and let this, for the viewers at home, let this show you that Star Wars goes so far beyond just the movies. It is, you can get so deep into it, and all of it is good. Like there's a part of Star Wars for everybody, and I firmly believe that. You may not be a fan of the movies, maybe you like the Clone Wars more. Just honestly give it a shot.
Yeah, it's definitely
absolutely. I think that we're also seeing right now that, like, we're kind of in this age now where, like, I keep been telling it to people, you gotta hop on all of the Star Wars that you can if you want to keep on with the train. I think the Mandalorian has shown it, because I was kind of surprised. To go back to what you were just saying, I was kind of surprised that we got so many cameos and so many characters appearing in this season. And I think a part of that, for me, I think what made the first season work so much was that there was those Easter eggs, there were those little droppings of things. It was, and I was always open to the possibility of, like, a Boba Fett appearing. That just felt like, it felt natural. You know what I mean? Like, if there was ever going to be a show that Boba Fett appeared in, it was going to be this one. But this one, though, this season was definitely like a commercial for a lot of different shows, like you were just mentioning. With Ahsoka's show being kind of launched from this, the Rangers of the New Republic kind of being launched with what was going on with Gina Carano becoming like a marshal in the New Republic, with the Boba Fett show that was announced. Like, it was clearly, like, in a way, kind of a commercial for all these other shows, which again, like you said, kind of worked, and it kind of worked. You know what I mean? The way that they chose to tell the story, the way that they chose to kind of, like, make sure that it still stayed Mandalorian centric, centered on Din and Grogu.
Yeah, they really brought the
also,
division together of Star Wars too after the sequel trilogy. I mean, like, literally, like, I haven't seen anybody. I mean, I've seen some negative thoughts about things, but mostly all around, I'm seeing just people loving the Mandalorian, and that's, like, with Star Wars, that's something special. I don't know if that was necessarily their goal to bring all the fans together, but they really did something with that, which I hope continues. I hope it just stays, like, I can only dream with that, and I don't really care what other people think as long as I'm enjoying it, right? I mean, like, talking to you guys about Star Wars is like, I know all you guys are, like, level-headed people, and like, in that we can sit here and talk about Star Wars and have differing opinions, but then also, like,
just have a general love for
like,
Star Wars.
Yeah, it's like, we could see each other's perspective and just respect it. It's like, we're not here to tear each other apart and all that, and that's just like Star Wars is, like, one of the most toxic franchises there just ever was. Like, I don't know, it just, but I think Mandalorian really did a good job of keeping it positive. Any other thoughts before I move on to the other one that I want to talk about?
Yeah, real quick, I do want to say that, because I kind of, like, lost my train of thought when I was saying it earlier, was just right now, if you've seen Mandalorian season 2, and maybe you're a fan of Star Wars, you're a pretty big fan, you like the movies, you've watched The Mandalorian, but you're kind of like a little bit like you were able to follow it because the story was good and the way they chose to write it. But you're kind of wondering, who these Bo-Katan is, Ahsoka, all these characters, and now they're getting their own shows. If there's ever been a time to jump onto the Clone Wars and Rebels, it's now. Those are the two most invested into animated Star Wars properties that are starting to, that not just starting but have been trickling in. The stories from those shows have been trickling in to books and comics, and now the movies and now the Mandalorian, and it's only going to continue on like this. And with the Ahsoka television show that is going to bring characters from Star Wars Rebels into that to tell a follow-up story to the events of that show, with a Boba Fett show that's going to now tell, go off of the events of Mandalorian. Same with the Rangers of the New Republic, with the Bad Batch show that's gonna go based on the story from the Clone Wars with the Bad Batch. It's this thing where it's like you have to hop on now, I think, to fully. And some people will make the argument like, oh yeah, like the show should be able to tell their own stories. Sure, and I understand it, but at the end of the day, it's like you're not gonna go watch Avengers Endgame and expect to have the same emotional investment in everything that's happened if you haven't. You know what I mean? Like, if you haven't watched all the other stuff. So I think we're just at a place, unfortunately for some who think it's dumb, I get it. But I think you're at a time where it's like, just hop on and watch this stuff. Because I think if you're a Star Wars fan, there's going to be something in there that you're really going to enjoy in the Clone Wars and Rebels. That will really expand your knowledge of Star Wars, as well as allow you to feel like you understand what's happening, you know what I mean, in the story overall, with a lot of these characters appearing. And then you can also have those moments where you see something like when Bo-Katan's helmet showed up in the first episode that she's in, where I'm like, oh, I know that helmet instantly. I knew the design on the helmet. But some people were just probably watching it just like, oh, cool, another Mandalorian.
Yeah, I mean, that was me at first. I was like, I'd found out later that she's actually in the animated stuff, and I'm like, oh, okay, that's really cool. And like the Darksaber and all this stuff is all tied in. And you know what? I love it because Disney and Lucasfilm are like, we're not leaving anything behind. You know what I mean? Like, that's a cool idea. I think it's kind of different this time around to have a universe that's like, no, if you want to keep up with this or this, go watch this. And I mean, because they're creating reasons for people to go check out stuff that they haven't seen. Like, I always wanted to watch Clone Wars. I just never got around to it, but I knew, like, I'm a Star Wars fan. Like, I want to see this whole, like, this stuff that's, like, basically in between 2 and 3. Like, it just, I love it, so that's going to be interesting. So one of the biggest things that they announced that everyone's been crying over for like freaking forever, and I love it. I have no ill feelings toward it at all. Hayden Christensen is back as Anakin Skywalker, aka Darth Vader, in the Obi-Wan Kenobi series. Now, let me just say right off the bat with that, I kind of wish they would have just... I mean, okay, you can't really surprise us if he's going to be Vader because you wouldn't even know who's under the helmet. But it is one of those situations where, like I'm just kind of rolling my eyes, like, do they have to announce every... Like, nowadays, you can't avoid it. Like, announce every actor that's going to play a thing in a thing. So then you just kind of know, like, how Spider-Man right now is doing all this. Like, I would have liked some of these characters to just be a surprise. And... it's just, I have to just live with the fact that that's not our world anymore. Everything's announced, everything's shared, and it's fine, but it's also like, I would have been fine to find out something. I don't know. Like, it is cool. I think it really brings it, like, just kind of home with him being Vader. To me, it's one of those things, like, it matters. It's cool that he will play him, but it's also like, yeah, but anybody really could be under that. I'm not saying, like, everyone's talented enough to play Vader, but you know what I mean. Like, they could have played anybody to be in the suit. But what do you guys think about that?
I want to hear what Dustin's thoughts.
I mean, personally,
if he could stop processing the High Republic stuff.
There's just so much to talk about, and I'm going to be honest with you guys. I'm so damn tired.
I hear you, man. It's been busy lately.
I'm so tired, but I'm excited for him to play Anakin. I think that's great, and it's like what you said too, with how everything is shared nowadays. it's very like hit or miss with me with that whole, things being shared, because it's like I want the surprise, but at the same time it's like almost kind of nice to know and prepare yourself for that. But
yeah,
it's
in some instances, yeah. It depends for sure.
Like it was a lot different, to break the topic of Star Wars. I'm sorry, but like whenever they announced the new Suicide Squad movie, and they had like all those actors are playing like all these different characters, like that's okay, because in that, like, that's something to like look forward to. But I don't know. For me, with Star Wars, it's like just I try to avoid as much as possible when it comes to spoilers, because it's something I want to take in, all at once and just enjoy.
Yeah. And I mean, and as a fan with Hayden Christensen, I'm like, yeah, I'm hyped, because it just like, he hasn't played this character in many, many years.
It's
And
been a
I mean,
long time.
it is a cool way for him to like come back. And I love that. And it's kind of like an idea in your head, like when you see Vader in this show, you're gonna be like, that's like actually Anakin under, instead of just like a different actor. There's like more of just like a, I don't know, Anthony, how would you describe that feeling of like continuity, where it's like you just feel I don't know the word for that. And also your thoughts on this.
Yeah, well, I mean, I get what you're saying. It's like you feel validated as a fan for
validated.
keeping up.
He's smarter than me. Okay, he's smarter. than me.
No. I feel what you're saying. It's hard to find that wording, and I think for me, like, it's like, here's a perfect example, right? It's like part of like what I was just saying before with the whole Ashley Eckstein thing. Sometimes the continuity kind of makes you go, ugh. Like, there's a part of you that's like, why did they do that? Or it's even something like, an inconsistency, like watching A New Hope. And Obi-Wan saying, well, I don't remember having a droid when he sees R2-D2, but it's like, dude, you've been on like 1,000 missions with this guy. And so it's like, it's stuff like that. There's always going to be these inconsistencies with continuity. But yeah, being able to have Hayden Christensen come back, for me, I'm thrilled, because I've always been a supporter of Hayden Christensen. There are lines of dialogue and moments in the prequels that aren't 100%, but I think that he did a great job. He played the part well. He looked great as the role, and I have a lot of love for him as the character. And my assumption is that a lot of people think Vader and Kenobi will meet, and it's possible. I'm assuming what's his name? Hayden Christensen played Vader in the suit just for those moments that we saw him in Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah.
Initially, George was going to get somebody else. He was going to get somebody else because Vader's supposed to be a little bit taller, because of the suit, like kind of like the legs, the robotic legs made him a little taller.
Mm-hmm.
So they kind of had to add some platforms for those scenes that Hayden was in, but he clamored to be in the suit. So my assumption is going to be that we're going to see Hayden more in a, maybe in like kind of similar to some of those scenes you see in the original trilogy, where Vader's kind of like in his little station where he is kind of able to take the helmet off. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
and in the bath chamber thing, whatever the bath is called.
The back to tanks, yeah. So stuff like that, like the back to tanks or something along those regards. I always thought maybe we'd see his face like in Rogue One when he's in the back to tank and it's kind of like draining.
Yeah,
I was hoping that we would see Hayden Christensen.
Quite get there with showing it.
Yeah, well, like they didn't want to show his face. Like they kind of just showed a little bit of like part of his head and part of his sides, and I was just like, oh god, I wish they would have just got Hayden for this.
God, I love that scene so much in Rogue One. That's one of the best things about that movie.
So good. It's so good. Yeah, I love that he's in it. I love that he's gonna be in it. I'm excited. I almost don't want them to meet though, even though like I'm sure a lot of people would say what the hell. But I just wanted to make sure that line from A New Hope, I've been waiting for you, Obi-Wan. When I left you, I was but the learner. Now I am the master. Like I don't want that to be
only a master of evil, Darth.
Exactly. I want that to still have that weight,
Yeah, I know. It's kind of like, it's got me curious. If anything, it's like, okay, Hayden Christensen's playing Vader, so they're just confirming. By the way, like Vader's gonna be in this show. By the way, and I mean, I wouldn't have predicted that at all. Honestly, like you could have just like not had Vader in it, because I'm sure it's gonna be a lot of cutting to like a Star Destroyer or something, and Vader's in it, and there's some kind of like plan or mission going on or something. I don't know. I mean, there's a point. And I don't know if they're going to talk about this, but with the Kenobi series, I'm really excited about it just because, kind of like how I feel about Clone Wars with between 2 and 3 is like Kenobi is going to take place between 3 and 4, so it's like there's a lot of time. He becomes a lot older by the time we get to Luke. So it's like, so I'm curious of stuff like, last time Obi saw Anakin was him becoming fried chicken. Okay, that's basically what it was. So, and I just want to see, like, where's the point where, unless it's in a comic somewhere, I don't know, like, when did he find out, like, oh, Darth Vader is Anakin, like, that's him, that's what happened, that he survived, because he literally just, like, cut legs, and you were the chosen one, and then just, like, bye. Like, he doesn't try to save him because he's just, he's too far from being saved or whatever, or he just thinks he's freaking dead. There's just, like, this mystery of, like, when did he find out? And, like, and Vader obviously would know that Obi's alive. And it's just, like, casting Hayden Christensen and just announcing that Darth Vader's going to be in the show just raises so many questions. And that's enough hype for me. And, I mean, and watching the Clone Wars definitely has given me this, like, man, they really were, like, fairly close as, like, warriors in combat together and stuff, and, like, and they just had that connection, and this to see, like, okay, technically, like, enemies now at that point of Vader and older Obi-Wan, it's like, I just want to see, like, what are they going to talk about with this? Like, where's the dynamic going to be? Like, what is it going to be? Or is it, like, I have a feeling, I don't think they will, but I just hope they don't beat it over the head. Like, no, yeah, they fight like 5 times in between 3 and 4. And it would suck if that happens, because that moment, only a master of evil Darth, and, like, that whole scene is, like, has so much more weight, like Anthony was saying, if, like, they didn't meet, or at least just, like, there will probably be a moment, and this is just me speculating, there'll probably be a moment where they came close to it or something like that, because I know how they like to do stuff like that. I don't know. It does add more hype, even though I was already excited about the idea of just, like, Kenobi in the desert and adventures. Like, I was already hyped about that, even without Vader, but it definitely adds, like, the most feared man in the galaxy is going to be in this show, and let's see where it goes, and it's also exciting to think about Vader with, nowadays technology, like how we saw him in Rogue One. We had never really actually got to see him just slice through rebels like that. So, I mean, so it really just adds a lot of hype with that.
Yeah, for sure. I think that it's kind of go back to what you were saying. It's like kind of like a double-edged sword with, like, the announcements, right? It's like they announce it, so now we know it, so it hypes you up, so it gets your anticipation for it much higher. But I didn't need that already. Like, I was already hyped on the idea of Ewan McGregor returning as Obi-Wan.
Oh,
but
yeah, so hyped.
Then it's also kind of like the thing that's happening with Spider-Man, like you mentioned. Like, some of those things were announced, like Alfred Molina coming back as Doc Ock and Jamie Foxx coming back as Electro. But, like, certain things, like, they have not given official confirmation, like, that, Tobey Maguire is returning and Andrew Garfield. These are just reports, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of the problem, is, like, even if it's not officially confirmed, there are just so many outlets and so many people in the film journalism world that are out there fishing these scoops. I mean, there are pictures that you can find online of reported pictures of Tobey Maguire, going to, like, do costume, like, fitting, you know what I mean? Like, he's like,
yeah, and I always question how many of these are real and how is this not, this could be from anywhere.
Right.
Sure. But a lot of it is legit, though. That's the problem, right? It's like a lot of this stuff is happening just in public areas, especially, like, in, like, Hollywood, or, like, they film a lot of movies, like a lot of Marvel movies in, like, Georgia, and, like, there's these areas that people already know, like, this is where Marvel Studios kind of works, you know what I mean? And so then they're able to kind of, like, there's just the movie. The further I've gone into, like, just keeping up with movies the way I do, and, like, keeping up with people who do the movie news and stuff like that, it just goes. There are just people that are, like, everywhere, like, trying to get the scoop. You know what I mean? Still to this day, that's still a thing, like, at all times. So even if that stuff's not announced, then it ends up being, discovered in some way, shape, or form. It's kind of like a double-edged sword. But yeah, man, I'm definitely excited for what's to come. I kind of similar to you feel like it's gonna be something where Vader and Kenobi maybe see each other from a distance, or maybe they have something similar to like what like a moment similar to maybe what like Rey and Kylo had during the sequel trilogy, where they were able to kind of see each other through the Force.
Oh, I didn't
Um,
even think about that. That'd
Yeah,
be crazy.
that would be wild.
So I feel like that's kind of more likely, you know what I mean? Where it's kind of like maybe a discussion that can be had, a moment of, Kenobi realizing where Anakin ended up, you know what I mean? And then,
Dude, that would so
yeah,
tie into when I know it's like the Force, so of course Vader would feel Obi's presence whenever they entered the Death Star. Like he has that moment, like sense of presence I have not felt since, and like that could connect to that in a way, like that they basically they've been having these like force phone calls before this, just like it's like FaceTime me, man, let's talk. And so actually I could really see that working way more than like having to meet up or whatever. And if I have like one brief fight or something, I'm not gonna complain because it'll be epic. But I mean, but it's like, I feel like they gotta kind of I believe in them with this. I feel like with how the Mandalorian went and everything, I feel like they're not gonna push it too hard, and if they do meet, they'll make it work in some way. And but yeah, the Force conversations, like that was really picking my brain now. I'm like that would work perfectly. Like if the whole show was a lot of that back and forth and they'd ever meet, that'd be so cool. Yeah, really crazy stuff coming, man. Like
I
Star
think
Wars
what's good too about them kind of using these OG characters that we grew up with, and watching Star Wars is, I think the Mandalorian too also kind of brought like a new group of people in to really start enjoying Star Wars, and I think with them bringing back these original characters too, it's gonna kind of push people to go watch the older stuff and kind of really tie that experience together with what's coming.
Yeah, definitely agreed on that. Did we all watch, Dustin, did you watch the Bad Batch trailer?
I did not. I didn't even know there was a trailer for that. I don't know how I missed it either.
I definitely, and that'll probably be pretty much the last one we'd be able to cover, but, because, I mean, Star Wars is just like, I could talk for 5 hours about it, so
We can all go on forever.
I know we could all do that, but,
And had I would have
Bad
watched the
Batch.
last episode of The Mandalorian, we could have had a whole episode about that, but here I am, like 2 weeks behind everybody else. So,
the Bad Batch, I definitely, at first, I was like, what is this, what's this gonna be, and, like, I was like, wow, like, first trailer, and I've still only seen it once. I need to go rewatch the trailer, but literally the one time I remember so many things about the trailer, and it just hooked me on, like, okay, and by the time that comes out, I'll be caught up on Clone Wars and Rebels, so it's like, this is gonna be crazy, like, not like on the hype level of, like, Kenobi, of course, but it's like, but another animated show by them will be just like, I don't know, there's something about it. It's the way that a trailer's edited as well that really like hooked me. It just like, it really drives home like this is going to be something cool. I almost feel like this is kind of like that show or movie actually that we thought we were going to get like years ago whenever like because they've been talking about bringing Boba Fett back, like basically in canon, like, okay, he survived the Starlight Pit, like they wanted to change that for so long. And I remember something about like little rumors of like Boba Fett and like a team of like other helmeted characters and stuff, and I'm just like, that sounds amazing. And I almost feel like this is kind of like that. I don't even really know, like, Anthony, you may know way more, other than, obviously the show hasn't come out, but the Bad Batch, like, what even is that? Because I know you mentioned, like, it earlier, but I need, like, a full explanation.
Yeah, so the Bad Batch was actually something that was supposed to be in the final season, or what was supposed to be back in the day before the Clone Wars got canceled, and then it was brought back. It was supposed to be in the next coming season. So it's actually... The Bad Batch is actually an arc, the first 4 episodes of the final season of the Clone Wars. That's where
Nice.
these characters were all introduced for the first time properly to the audience. So the Bad Batch are essentially a group of clones that all came out with different like things that kind of make them unique and kind of a strength, but they didn't come out as your typical batch of clones. All the other clones look the same, then they get themselves different, they have different hair, they'll have different tattoos and markings and things that give them their own identity. But they're all, they all look and sound the same with their various differences in their personalities and all that jazz. The Bad Batch is a bunch of clones that came out not proper. Like some of their faces don't look exactly like all the other clones. You have one guy who's like the big brute. He's like a huge hulking monster clone. He has a similar face to all the other clones, but he's essentially just like a big, like the brute of the gang. You have this one guy, the leader, who's kind of like a Rambo-esque character, who I would say looks the most like the regular clones, but he's still kind of different. You have the sharpshooter that's kind of like, his face is probably the most different out of all of them. Doesn't really look like a clone at all, but he is a clone, and they're all voiced by the same actor who does all of the clones in all of the animated stuff, D. Bradley Baker. So it was pretty great because every time that those episodes were airing for the first couple episodes of the Clone Wars, everybody was just saying like, aren't these episodes where D. Bradley Baker's just talking to himself for 20 minutes? Just amazing. But he's really good at it, man. He does such a great job of like differentiating all of the clones while also playing all of those characters on top of various other characters he plays across the Clone Wars. He's such a talented guy, and so it's just a cool like idea of this like kind of like almost like this spec ops, like black ops kind of team that they were using for clone missions. That's kind of like they went in a small group rather than these battalions of clones that would go in, because you had the sharpshooter, you had the tech guy, you had the brute, you had like the leader that was kind of like a Rambo, and it's just like a cool group.
It really reminds me of Noble Team so much. I'm just like, it reminds me of Halo.
By the sounds of it
much.
it reminds me of, it's like Suicide Squad in Star Wars.
It kind of is. It's like this group of like really badass, cocky guys, and they are all badass. When you watch that that arc, the action of this small group of clone troopers taking on like a crap ton of. That's the thing, is the reason that they're so. The reason that they're so cool is that they're so effective. Like like how many times have you watched Star Wars in general and seen a million like stormtroopers or clone troopers running towards battle, with a majority of them being like taken down, or it's just like a bunch of people just running and shooting essentially. But these guys all work as this tactical team. You'll have. There's a great action sequence in this isn't really a spoiler as far as the narrative, but like there's a great scene in their Bad Batch episodes where like they're taking on, and I actually got to see this same scene at Star Wars Celebration when they were showing for the Clone Wars panel. They showed it to the audience before the show came out. It was this great scene where it's just a small group of clones taking on like this huge battalion of droids. And just the way that they go about it, like the sharpshooter taking them out while some of them run forward, the brute going and like ripping some droids apart and using them as shields so they can all run behind him, as some of them are taking them out in different areas, throwing certain like devices and weapons, and they're just such a tight knit group of clones that are so tactical, that they just really differentiate them from any other clones. So yeah, I'm incredibly excited for their show, because even though they only had 4 episodes in that Clone Wars season, they were incredibly memorable. They made an impact on the fan base, and clearly, we're going to be getting more. So it's definitely super cool.
So the more Star Wars content, the better. So I'll let you guys kind of gather your recommendations. Does anybody know what their recommendation could be? Because I surely don't. Not yet. Just to kind of start to wrap up this amazing episode.
I mean,
wait, hold on. I'm sorry. What was your question?
The recommendation.
Anthony had a moment too.
I mean,
a recommendation that could be literally anything from Star Wars to just life advice or just whatever.
I mean,
okay.
I can kind of give you guys something to kind of jump off of what Anthony said early in the episode. If you really want to get the experience of what is going to be coming out, now is the best time to jump into the Clone Wars, because I know after this it's something I'm going to start myself and kind of get that full experience whenever these shows are released to us.
I can't wait for you to watch it.
I'm going to do it. I'm fully convinced now. I'm going to finish The Mandalorian first, but I'm definitely going to start The Clone Wars, and I'm sure I'll have many talks with Anthony about it too. I'll have questions, I'm sure.
Anthony, you think you got yours?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to piggyback on that and say the exact same, but yeah, man, there's so much great Star Wars content right now, and if you really want to be invested in the universe overall, there's just so much there for you, you know. One other thing that I meant to say earlier, and I kind of just, again, it just piggybacks on that same idea, is even like the small stuff that they can do in a way that doesn't ruin it for anybody else. In the first episode of this season of The Mandalorian, we're introduced to the character of Cobb Vanth, played by Timothy Oliphant, and he plays the guy who's wearing Boba Fett's armor in the first episode. And that character, when he popped up on screen, I knew exactly who it was before he took the helmet off. And when he said his name, the smile that bursted from my face, I was just so excited. I felt so validated as a fan because he is a character that was just introduced in a couple chapters of the Aftermath trilogy, which is a series of books that takes place in between the events of episodes 6 and 7. And there is a story of this guy who gets his hands on Boba Fett's armor. So I kind of was wondering, with Boba Fett being in the season, because it was kind of rumored already, if he was just going to kind of be thrown into the season already with his armor. But the fact that they brought a character from the books to live action for the first time, for me, again, just goes to show that they're paying attention to the details. You know what I mean? They're doing their best. Yeah. And so for me, that just, as far as a recommendation, yeah, just jump into the Clone Wars, jump into Rebels, jump into even to Star Wars Resistance, which I think is the weakest of the animated Star Wars shows and probably like the less impactful on the overall narrative. That's the one that I would say if you don't need to watch that one, but I enjoyed it for what it was. Yeah, outside of that. If I was to jump outside of Star Wars for a moment, yeah, you know, I would definitely recommend watching everything and anything you can.
It's like, just watch all of it, consume it, 24/7, never stop.
There's so much goodness out there, and even in the bad stuff, there's just so much that's just worth watching. I'm currently in the middle of doing my 4th rewatch of the Lost series, the TV show Lost. It's my girlfriend's first time, and man, it's just such a good, well-written, fun show, like with so many twists and turns, and I recommend that because it's fresh on my mind. But yeah, outside of that, I just want to say thank you to you guys for having me on here. It's been a blast.
Absolutely.
And with Anthony saying that, I'm going to cheat the system a little bit and throw it back at him. My recommendation is subscribe to Anthony A Perez.
Do it.
Definitely give him a sub, guys. His link will be in what we call the scroll of the description we have, because it's freaking gigantic. And I'm always going to plug Anthony because his channel's amazing. And not just because I've collabed with him. I mean, I'm in there, so, you know, check out those if you want to see my ugly face. But, you know, it's all great stuff. Like, Anthony is I call him the collabor of movie reviews, because he's always got a collab down the line. He's always, I mean, there's so many names that I don't know off the top of my head, but besides me, there's a lot of others he's collabing with. And movie reviews, like, it's not just Star Wars. He does, like, pretty much anything film, and like talking about TV, like Mandalorian, like this guy over here, like literally before I can even get my eyeballs on new Mandalorian episodes, he's like, boom, review, like it's there. Like I remember you telling me, you were like something about like how early you woke up to do that every time. It was like something really insane, like 2 or 3 in the morning.
Yeah, 3 a.m. every single
And
week.
and it's funny because I'll watch his Mandalorian episodes and you can tell that he just like is so freaking groggy. He's just like, he's so like, I did this for just my channel. I love it that much. And just like, I love it though, because it proves Anthony's dedication to movies, but also just to Star Wars in general. And if anybody needs a Star Wars Googler, hit him up, because he's the guy. I have not once anything that I've asked Anthony have I hit up Wikipedia or whatever. Like I haven't. I'm just like, I just know he's gonna know. So yeah, guys, subscribe to him for sure.
Do it.
Well, I appreciate that, man. Yeah, genuinely, thank you. And yeah, you're right, man. I got tons of collabs coming down the line. Trav and I have been talking about doing the latest Planet of the Apes trilogy together at some point on my
Yes.
channel, so we're definitely going to get that going. I just filmed a review for A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 5, The Dream Child, which I'll be doing with my buddy Blacktastic Media. I got a review with Rashaji Reviews coming soon for A Monster Calls, and so many others. Like I would take forever sitting here listing the ones that I have lined up. But yeah, I appreciate the kind words, my friend. It was very nice to come on here. And I definitely want to do it again with you guys for sure. Like,
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, maybe when Dustin's actually watched all of the Mandalorian.
When I'm caught up,
He's got a 5-hour energy in him. Like,
when I'm caught up and like starting to get through the Clone Wars, absolutely. That way, I just don't sit here and have my mind blown into a million fucking pieces.
like it's to the point of like I understand what Dustin's experiencing though when you're like so tired that like your thoughts are just like everywhere. I feel that all the time. But any one of you have any final thoughts, concerns, or actions?
No, I think we're pretty good. I'm excited to get a shower and go to bed and just to sit at my computer for 8 hours tomorrow. Or 10 hours, not
Star
even 10
Wars.
hours. Yeah. Yeah, I get to sit here for 10 hours. Maybe, you know what? I have a very relaxed job. I'm blessed to work from home. Maybe I'll just ignore everybody and I'll just pop on The Mandalorian and let people complain in their Zoom calls.
They would just be like Dustin's on the clock. Where is he? And then 45 minutes later, I just watched Mandalorian. We're good.
I'm all caught up, guys.
But yeah, guys. Do what?
I'll just be like, I'm all caught up, guys. Don't worry. They're over there screaming at
Like,
me.
share, subscribe, and all that stuff, guys. We appreciate you and for getting us to 60 subscribers on YouTube. Hey, like it's amazing. Email us. It's all down in the description. Follow us and tweet at us on Twitter, and we'll be talking to you guys next time.
See ya.